Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the old world. I hope you're all doing well, and today, my friends, we're back with a showdown between Vampire Coast and the DAWI. Looks like it's going to be Celestra leading the charge for the Coast against an unholy legion of Dwarven Quarrelers. So it looks like it's going to be 10 in total from the Dwarves, 5 of which have great weapons, 5 of which are the basic variant. Now, the great weapons do have some relevance. I think my opponent here, Random Nix, of course, is just bringing them just to get extra Quarrelers because they happen to be very good against Coast. But the great weapons, you know, if somebody's coming in Depth Guard, which are relatively meta for Vampire Coast nowadays in a lot of different matchups, having the great weapons on the Quarrelers really doesn't hurt, right? Now, as far as my build goes, it's going to be Celestra, and I feel like she's really, really good in this matchup. Now, obviously, she's not going to be doing a whole lot of work herself in combat. Granted, she does have good armor piercing, being a ghost unit. You can see she has 100% AP, and she has some good spells. So Kraken's Full is really good against Dwarven Blobs and Archers. On top of that, she can summon the Knights in your opponent's back line to really cause a lot of disruption, and she's relatively cheap as well, so I think she's a good pick. Now, Queen Bess, I think, is what my opponent was expecting here. I figured going wider with mortars, and this is the same with the Empire. If you know, the Sunmaker has become so meta, everybody's like building to counter it with like casters, and you know, they can just win the game if they hard counter it in the build screen, right? So coming in here with like a very kind of different style, but also similar in functionality, I think is good. Like with Empire, you can do Hellstorms, basic Hellstorms, get a couple more instead of the Sunmaker or mortars. And in this case, we just have 4 mortars. So the mortars are, you know, not huge armor-piercing damage, but honestly, if you just hit them on Quarrelers, they will get them eventually. Deckhand mobs, Sirens. Sirens used to be the way to go against the forces of the DAWI. Like way back when, they of course used to have even more physical resist. That's the change, right? So all these ghostly units got a big HP buff in exchange for losing physical resist. So they're a little bit more vulnerable now to being focused and blasting charged. But they're more of like a generalist thing now, but still very tough to kill potentially, right? We'll see how that goes. And the magic damage too, which is cool. You know, dwarves have spell resist now, right? So you can bring units with magic damage and you're not going to be suffering a big penalty against the DAWI here. So mortars and Shade Wraith Gunners, Celestra is here. And for Random's army, you guys saw it. It's mass Quarrelers backed up here by Dwarf Warriors. And of course, no true dwarf leaves home without blasting charges. Blasting charges are just the scourge of many a faction. And if you get them in there, they could just one-shot your infantry. So I'm not going to be wanting to fight that, that's for sure. But the mortar's doing good work. You can see immediately the Quarrelers here for the DAWI are certainly being picked on a little bit. You can see the cool new UI via the mod up here, so you can see the number of models lost, the value accrued, as well as the existing gold. I'm not sure about the gold army value. Seems a little bit funky, but nonetheless. Celestra moving up, going to be maybe looking to drop some Damned Knights Errant. My opponent's going to be pulling back, so I should be able to get a good cap initially. Going to be using my Sirens over here to get on the point. Sirens do have 48 speed, which makes them a pretty elusive little unit to use. And Sirens up on the high ground as well, so we do have that objective, and right now we can do a little bit of fast forwarding while we do just posture here. And the mortars continue to bombard, so you can see the Dwarven lines taking good damage, right? Like Queen Bess. The thing about Queen Bess against DAWI, right? So you bring it, the Dwarf summon in a cannon, the cannon can solo it very quickly. Now, the amount of time it's going to take a cannon to shut down 4 mortars is going to be forever, right? I think Queen Bess costs around 1,600, and the mortars for Vampire Coast are like 600 a pop or something like that. So like basically like 3 of them is like 1 Queen Bess, which I actually like that. So far it's been effective, right? And it's harder to dodge. If you're shooting 4 different targets, your opponent can't micro like super crazy and avoid that. Now, Shade Wraith Gunner is going to be unleashing on the blasting charges here. We have these Sirens waiting in the wings, but the DAWI are going to be grabbing the 2 middle objectives. They're just a little bit too tough to contest here. Up on the high ground, we do see the dreaded Skyhammer, probably one of the best units on the entire Dwarven roster. If this thing is able to kind of land its bombardments, you are going to be having a very bad time. As such, the Fellbats are summoned in to kind of chase it down, but my opponent's going to be trying to lure my Fellbats back to his army most likely. But I'm okay for the long grind. You know, I'm up pretty heavily in damage value, so I'm just trying to accrue that value with the mortars before we push in and hopefully soften up some of the range units. Deck Gunners are great. I think the Shade Wraith Gunners are good. I was kind of like, man, I wish I had brought in more of the Deck Gunners. They seem to be pretty effective at really kind of keeping the Dwarves at bay. Also, I do line up my Sirens on the objective just to outcap him here. So we do have 10 capture weight against his 5, which is going to be going down to 4 here in a moment simply because of the damage the models have taken. Now in the front, blasting charge is coming down. Tide of Skulls is going to be fleeing the scene. You don't want to give him the blasting charges for free, and he does land the Skyhammer. I do get the Fellbats back, but for the most part, I did kind of get baited in there. And Celestra is going to be looking to get some glorious Kraken's pulls here against his very wide DAWI army. Shade Wraith Gunner still doing it. Blasting charges coming in. It's hard to keep track of all those blasting charges. They are all over the place. And I believe, you know, my Sirens are going to get their bread buttered here. You can see the blasting charges coming in from Ekron's Miners. And, you know, old Sirens certainly wouldn't have taken, like, this big of burst damage. But even still, I don't have heals, right? So that was a really good play on my opponent's part. I wasn't paying attention, and I got punished for my Sirens pretty badly. Solostra using the Kraken's Pull in the back. It's a spell which has very good armor piercing. If you take a look at it, it does have 100% AP, so it's really, really good against the Dwarves. But she's taking a lot of damage herself, and my opponent is catching up on damage value. You can, of course, see the big Damaged Knights Errant summon coming out. I wish it was Campaign where I could upgrade them to Questing Knights, but they're just going to cause a ton of disruption to the back line. The Dwarves aren't like Grand Cathay, who can respond with their own cav. They're just going to have to eat this one. So the Damned Knights Errant coming in, Lance is couched for Solostra for the Opera Singer, and they do a good job. Instantly getting a massive amount of shock damage on the Quarrelers, who are now terrified, and I can just bounce around the backfield and really, really cause a ton of havoc. So honestly, a lot of things are going quite well. The value lead is, on my side, but of course my opponent here is ahead on a lot of other things in terms of the objectives. Now you can see with the new UI, right now, looking at my points, basically you can see the amount of time I have left. The points are on, I believe, the left-hand side, and the amount of time till victory in terms of seconds is on the right-hand side for this UI. Shade Wraith Gunner's doing the work, just blasting in. We got Fellbats flying all over the place, going to be diving into the backfield, and Scurvy Dogs have also gotten on top of blasting charges. Now, Miners have like some of the worst combat stats out there. They only have 18 melee defense, so even like Haggard skirmish like units like this, like Hounds, not so much with Chaos, but with the Undead Dogs and Hounds, you can definitely win a lot of those fights. Morngul's coming in trying to soften things up a little bit, but some dreaded Dragonback Slayers are able to kind of cut them off. Skyhammer still bombarding. Damage value is pretty even. My opponent is winning the objective game, but this is the time for the Vampire Coast to push up and get on the middle. A couple handgun mobs got a little bit overextended. Damned Knights Errant now shut down, but not before they cause a lot of disruption to the backfield. And the mortars are doing good. Like, a lot of the archers are very, very beat up, and normally it would be very hard to kind of shut those down. Shade Wraith Gunner's just doing awesome work. They do have a leadership discouraging ability of -16, which, is even going to make the most stalwart of dwarves kind of start to buckle here. Scurvy Dogs do get caught and broken, and I just can't deal with these damn Dragonback Slayers. They have been very, very elusive. I do summon in some Depth Guard. Depth Guard are actually quite good against dwarves, a little bit weak against blasting charges, just like everything else. And yeah, if they can get on a side point away from DAWI shooting, they can do well. And this is where the Dwarven Slayers are going to get wrecked really bad. Basically, Depth Guard are a hard counter to them, so we do get a nice catch. Dragonback Slayers are trying to force path through me and get out after the Morngul, so I loop the Mornguls like up and around and back through. In the meantime, Slosh is going to be dropping a summon back there on top of the Miners. But really, I'm starting to get pushed back a little bit. My opponent is catching up in value. He's got a nice concave of archers here, so he's got his Quarrelers, and he's got more Dwarf Warriors coming out. And those Slayers getting into the backfield actually did kind of hurt my momentum a little bit, right? Because I wanted to be sending stuff up here and contesting, but instead I have, two relatively high-value units via Cyrene and a Depth Guard, just chasing down some troublesome DAWI. So that's very tough. I'm starting to realize I need a little bit more meat on these objectives, right? So we get Depth Guard coming out. They're going to go fight some Dwarf Warriors up here, and then we'll be looking to kind of move up to the high ground and secure that objective. And that was weird. This screen kind of like froze for a second. Can't quite get that middle point, man. You can look at the time. You can see how much I need to win, how much my opponent needs to win. Looking at the current score, I have fallen behind. Not terribly substantially in points, but I'm behind. Certainly a little bit stressful. Skyhammer in the back, trying to get in once again. The Skyhammer itself has only gotten 175 value so far, so it hasn't been terribly devastating. Obviously, I see my opponent has a little bit of a hard-on for my elite blob here, so going to be coming in with the bombing run on top of my Depth Guard, which is a good call because, the Skyhammer is close to just not having done anything. So I'm trying to juke to the best of my abilities. We do take a big bombardment right there and another one, so very, very good bombardments despite being under pressure. But the Depth Guard were able to kind of dodge it a little bit. Just a little bit. Solostra in the middle, she's a presence. We do have the Deccan mobs and the handguns. Cyrene's also coming in to help out against the Dwarf Warriors. And the Dwarven missile line in the back is very tattered, though still somewhat numerous. 46 model, 76 here. We got another Quarreler here, which was summoned back in. So now you can see a big kind of classic RTS concave coming down, which is going to be some big damage. And another Kraken's Pull, so there it goes. Hopefully it will help me finish off those units. The Dwarves are also pressuring the high ground, and I am a little bit ahead on value, but not that much. Scurvy Dogs fighting against the blasting charges. Cyrenes, they're not what they used to be in this matchup, honestly, and they're just getting wrecked by the Ulthar Raiders and these Dwarves, right? So, old Cyrenes would have taken a lot longer to kill, especially with Invocation support, but I still think Solostra has been very, very good this game, and honestly maybe preferable to a Vampire character, although I think a Noctilus might have been slightly better, because with Roth's Moondial and Drowned Dead summons in your opponent's backfield, you can really shut down a lot of these guns for sure. So, Fellbats hunting down the Skyhammer. Skyhammer, as far as value, has accrued about 1,000. Granted, the Skyhammer has taken so much damage that it's not going to be refunding my opponent a lot of value there, so not going to be working out terribly well. We got Animated Hulks intercepting these Dwarf Warriors, and the Shade Wraith Gunners have done very well. About 1,000 value, a lot of kills. A couple damn Slayers back here. Look at these guys just trolling me. The zombie crews are like trying to fight back. They're like, "Be gone, spawns of darkness," and the Dwarves, just 3 of them. Very stalwart folk are fighting very, very well there. Now, middle objective belongs to us, and the top objective belongs to us as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we do have the 2 cap now. Scurvy Dogs coming in. Having to fight dwarves in melee is not fun. We get a couple depth guard trying to rush onto these rangers, but these are great weapon rangers, so they have great weapons in melee too. So they'll actually do okay. Granted, I think maybe the depth guards still win this. They're just that beast mode, though their HP is really low. They're at about 1500, but look how quickly they cut through these Altar's Raiders. It is just like cutting through butter right here. Felbat's also coming in to try and intercept these miners or rear charge into the Altar's Raiders to salvage the depth guard situation, which I think is what it's going to be. In the backfield, I still have all my mortars online, and they've all been doing really well, shooting the entire game. The Dwarven army is relatively tattered, but I think one of the things that's gone very badly for me this game, I've now fallen behind in value, obviously, as the battle kind of progresses and some of the trades get worse and worse, is that the Sirens were pretty bad, honestly. And in retrospect, you know, I hadn't really tried it. This is one of my first times playing this matchup on Domination here. The Sirens, with some of the changes, they just didn't feel good. It felt like Blasting Charges karate chopped them, so I think you have to take another approach against Dwarves. And I have a couple theories, but really, I'm just starting to fall behind pretty heavily now. You can see that the Depth Guard are just fighting here, but the Dwarves have such a nice stranglehold. I'm desperately trying to hold on to objectives here. We got mortar shooting, but my opponent is rapidly approaching a triple cap here. The DAWI are just persistent, just not stopping, constantly sending out big threats. I used all the ammo on my mortars. Pretty happy about that. I would imagine they all used their ammunition if we take a look, or all paid for themselves. Yeah, 600 gold is good. I mean, I'm happy with that. Slostra in the middle does crumble down, and we do have some animated hulks over here. So during the course of the game, I didn't realize how far behind I was. It was a tournament match, so I was like really just trying to micro. And, you know, again, in this situation, though, you should probably just leave. If you're triple capped like this, you don't have any sort of a chance. High ground, we do have some Mourngulls. They get a nice little jump up on the miners with blasting charges here. But, you know, just going to be dragged down by just unholy amounts of DAWI. But I love the build for my opponent. I thought it was really cool. I felt what worked in my build and what didn't. I think immediately you just got the Sirens. They just were not good. I think having 1 or 2 in reserve to pressure a side point might be good, but honestly, it just felt like they got crumped by most of the threats that my opponent has. Depth Guard do come in. Mourngulls are also quite solid here. I think something else that you should probably really do, if your opponent has a mass missile build like this, save up your resources and summon like 4 or 5 Felbats at once with Scurvy Dogs and Alpha Strike them. Like the way I kind of was a little bit more traditional in terms of summoning things in allowed him to react too easily, but yeah, really, like, a lot of the build was good. The Deck Hunters were incredibly solid. The Mortars were good. I think it's a good alternative to Best. Like, 900, 700, pretty good. I mean, they averaged out to do well. But look how shitty the Sirens were. 188, 225, 61, and 704. They're just too vulnerable against blasting charges. They have 0 armor, so the crossbows really just tear into them. And I know they have the physical resist, but it just didn't feel good. Like, everything was trading really well. We were out trading early hard, but as the Sirens got entangled and had to fight in combat is when I started to lose the game. Depth Guard did a little bit better for sure. I think they're just a solid piece. But yeah, I think the build has some teeth. As far as what we can do, let's go back to the drawing board and see what we can come up with together. Very well played to Random. That was a super fun match. And he's always a beast, obviously. I think he's number 1 on the leaderboard right now, so just an absolute unholy terror. All right, so going to the multiplayer lobbies. Let's do this, let's do that, and let's get this going. So we are in a domination match, and we are playing the Vampire Coast. I actually feel pretty confident in that. Like, I feel like there was so many things working that if we just fine-tune it a little bit, we'll be okay. So probably Hard Knock Life on, yeah, so Invocation. Do we want Drowned Dead, or do we just go Roth's Moondial maybe and just do Winds of Death instead? I think that actually feels a little bit better. So Smoke and Mirrors you don't really need. It gives you a speed buff, and Wraithstorm you can cut against Dwarfs. So I feel like that's good. He's an armor-piercing character, so he himself is like kind of hard to remove. Now, as far as the Mortar opening, I like that. I think like Quad Mortar against Dwarves is pretty solid. I think we do Shade Wraith and 2 Deck Gunners like this. Like, this is a lot of nasty shooting, and this like composition is really going to be absolutely punishing against the dwarven missile line. Now, the one vulnerability is being rushed, right? If you get rushed, that's going to be really bad. So obviously you want 4 Felbats in reserve. I think you just want Scurvy Dogs all day because they're really good. I think you go for double Mourngul and Depth Guard for sure. Depth Guard, like if you get rushed and just summon in Depth Guard, that's nice, but dealing with the blasting charges is very tough. It makes me think maybe you want to like try some crab action? Maybe another one of these or 2 of these to deal with, to just be a cheap screen and to shoot at gyrocopters if they end up coming after you. You of course have Felbats, but if the Skyhammer comes nearby, you can of course get some work done there. And you can shoot them with Deck Gunners too. Now from here, I think we just throw like crappy Deckhand mobs, because if something's going to be sacrificed to the blasting charges, might as well be those. So this opening already feels just way stronger. I wouldn't mind Salt Lord Scuttlers. They're an armor-piercing or armor-sundering bomber unit, I think. No, that's the wrong one, yeah. to like help clear a side point. And then from there, we have the zombies. Do we want a cannon? I don't think so. A couple animated Hulks. Oh god, I'm just like barely short. All right, I think 2 Hulks. And then we could just get like a crappy halberd mob. Can we not afford that? Yeah, we can. Okay. This build feels good. GG, well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys like the post-game analysis as well. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you on the other side.